GoForThe2.com in with the week 6 predictions. Week number 5 did not disappoint. Major upsets along the way. Great games. It started in terms of the noon window. We saw USC get pushed to the limit. They hang on in the fourth quarter, 48-41. Shedeur Sanders, dynamic second half performance, 370 yards. Caleb completes 30 of 40 for 403, 6 touchdowns and 1 interception. We saw an absolute thriller in Oxford in terms of Ole Miss and LSU. LSU has a 9-point lead, 49-40, with 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter and loses the ball game 55-49. Unbelievable output by Jackson Dart and Quinshon Judkins. 300 rushing yards, 300 passing yards, and 726 yards of total offense for Lane Kiffin. Eliminates LSU from the college football playoff contention. Amazing effort in the Grove Saturday night. Amazing. The stage is set for an unbelievable weekend of college football. If you want all the analysis, you could always tweet me at GoForThe2, the number 2, or turn in to Carver and Lisi every night, Monday through Friday, 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern. That's 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern, Sirius Channel 159, or College Football Today, every Saturday morning, 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. Eastern, Sirius Channel 159, or SportsGrid.com. For the video portion, we give you top 25 games, under the radar games, best bets, prop bets, you name it. We have you covered on College Football Today, straight through kickoff at noon Eastern. Let's jump into the video. 7 selections, a little bit of rapid fire. You could always tweet me, though. Let's start on Friday night. You have 2 Big 12 teams coming out of a bye week, Kansas State, Oklahoma State. Kansas State, the more complete offense, averaging 198 rushing yards per game, throwing it in the area of about 284 with their quarterback, Will Howard. He's completed 65% of his passes. They go on the road. Let's not forget, last year, this was the game that Kansas State absolutely abused Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State had a very difficult run heading into that ball game. They were emotionally drained. They got pushed to the limit, I believe, by teams like TCU. I believe it was West Virginia. They had a tough 3-game stretch, and Kansas State caught them at just the right time. They came out flat, and they got absolutely dominated in Manhattan, 48-0 in that ball game. You look at the front 7 of Kansas State, holding opposing offenses to 98 rushing yards per game, less than 40 yards per carry, and that should travel well. But you have an Oklahoma State team that right now was using a 3-quarterback system. Gundy, Garrett Rangel, and Alan Bowman. Bowman will get the start. He's only completing 53% of his passes, 2 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. The difference with Oklahoma State right now, I believe, is the difference in terms of the RPO game as it relates to the quarterback. You have Bowman, not a mobile quarterback like Spencer Sanders. Rangel does have mobility, but he doesn't run it, in my opinion, the way Spencer Sanders did the past couple of seasons, especially when they went to the Big 12 championship game with Jaylen Warren. They were much more balanced in terms of a run-heavy offense. Now they're pass-heavy. They're throwing for 221 through the air, rushing for about 121 yards on the ground. Still a little bit inconsistent in terms of the rushing attack. They're in the area of about 3.7 yards per carry. They're not managing third downs as well, only converting in the area of about 34% of their third down opportunities. They've now had an extra week of preparation. I think that benefits them, coupled with the fact they're coming off back-to-back losses. South Alabama at home, Iowa State on the road by 7. That was a Big 12 loss as well. This is a potential bounce-back spot in Friday night primetime. Also, Mike Gundy, the last 2 seasons at home since 2021 straight up, 14-2 overall. I think Oklahoma State's live. They're still playing well from the defensive perspective, 37% third down conversions, 3.7 yards per rush allowed. I think that'll allow them to cover this 11.5-point number Friday night in Stillwater, like the Cowboys, plus the points in that ball game. Big ACC battle. We'll give you 2 of them. It's 2 dogs, too. Syracuse on the road to face Drake May in North Carolina. Drake May in North Carolina coming out of a bye week. They should be prepped and ready, but still not the same offense for North Carolina with May at the helm. Last year he threw for over 30 touchdowns. This year, 5 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. 72% completion percentage. I still like Syracuse in this spot. You look at Garrett Schrader last week, 186 yards through the air, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. They went with Clemson for a half. They trailed 21-7 at the half. They cut it to within 7 points and trailed 21-14. Just could never get close in the fourth quarter. And Clemson did wind up winning that ball game on the road and covering that number. But I still like the rushing attack of Syracuse going on the road, and more importantly, still think their defense can keep them in it. They're holding opposing offenses to 98 rushing yards per game, only 200 passing yards per game. And I think that's where they could force Drake May to methodically work down the field, a similar game plan to what we saw a couple of weeks ago in terms of Minnesota and PJ Fleck. They were in that ball game. They can move the football. It was just in red zone opportunities. Minnesota couldn't convert. I think Syracuse can. Catching 8.5 points on the road in Chapel Hill, I think they cover the 8.5 point number. Boston College goes on the road to face Army. Army coming out of a bye week. That should benefit the Cadets, but I still think Boston College potentially has some life, especially the way they played last week. They trailed 14-0 against Virginia, laying 3 points. They rally, they win the ball game 27-24. Their quarterback, UCF transfer Castellanos, 183 yards through the air, but 78 yards on the ground, and I think that's the difference going on the road to face Army. We know about Army being this dominant triple option attack. They're more balanced this year. 208 on the ground, 169 through the air. That is the difference. And 37% in terms of third down offense. I think Boston College could be live. Castellanos is mobile. He averages well over 5 yards per carry. But you look at the rushing attack for Boston College. 203 on the ground, and they held Virginia to 56 yards in terms of that ball game. They're playing now on the road. Hafley's on the hot seat. They have a little momentum. I think Boston College is live, plus the 3 points in Army this coming weekend. We'll see how that plays out, but they could potentially strike the upset, in my opinion. Also, first road game, I believe, for Boston College. They went toe-to-toe, lost Northern Illinois at home. They lost Louisville. They lost Florida State. They now go on the road to square off in this ball game. Keep an eye out. I think they're live, plus the 3 points. Might be their second road game. I think they were on the road in Louisville as well. But still think Castellanos, his mobility is the difference in terms of this ball game. 2 big spreads. Georgia laying the 14.5 against Kentucky. What an amazing performance by Ray Davis last week. 280 yards on the ground, 3 touchdowns. He was getting to the second level every time he ran against the Florida front seven. That was a terrible performance by the defensive tackles and the front seven of Billy Napier and the Florida Gators. Don't know what went wrong. They looked like they were flat. They came out ill-prepared, and they trailed by 23 points in the first quarter and never were within striking distance. But you look at the series perspective, Georgia has won 13 straight against Kentucky. Last 3 have been very close. They won last year 16-6. The last 3, the Bulldogs have won by an average margin of victory of 12.6 points per game. But this is going to come down to 2 things. I think Georgia's defense bounces back in a big way. Why? Because they gave up their first 200-yard rusher last week against Auburn over the past 5 seasons under Kirby Smart. That was a front seven that was holding opposing offenses to 2.8 yards per carry, and they got absolutely torched by Peyton Thorne and the rushing attack of Auburn. They put up 203. Secondly, Carson Beck starting to come into his own. Back-to-back 300-yard performances, 338 against UAB, 313 in that performance last week, and his tight end Brock Bowers, unbelievable performance, 8 receptions, 157 yards, the touchdown to put the Bulldogs up 7, and then they get the pick in the final drive against Peyton Thorne to seal the deal. It's going to come down to Devin Leary making plays, and I don't think he could do it going up against the secondary of Georgia that's given up 177 passing yards per game. What's the difference? Why was Georgia pushed to the limit against Spencer Rattler? He threw for 256. Jacob Zeno threw for 250. It was the rushing attack of Auburn last week, but that was a road game. You look at Devin Leary, very inconsistent. Last week only completed 45% of his passes. He's completing 57% on the season. That's not going to get it done against the Georgia secondary. It might be close for a half because of Ray Davis, because of their ability maybe early to run the football, but Georgia pulls away in the second half, laying less than 15 and a half. I think the Bulldogs win this ball game convincingly, 21 or more against the Wildcats. USC laying a huge number against Arizona. Arizona has lost 10 straight in the series. Last 3 have been very close. They've lost by an average margin of defeat of 6.3 points per game. Lost last year 45-37. We know about USC having potentially Notre Dame on deck. I get that. We know that their defense allowed a ton of yards to Shedeur Sanders and Colorado. I understand that as well. And we know that Arizona's only given up 3.8 yards per carry and, more importantly, 98 rushing yards per game. But Jaden Delore is a game-time decision. He might play if he's healthy. If he can, it'll be the freshman, Noah Fifita. Now, he played lights out last week, completed 30 of 40 for over 300 yards, gets the cover against Washington. But now this is a road game going up against Caleb Williams and an offense that's putting up over 550 yards of total offense. Caleb Williams last week, 403 yards, completes 30 of 46 touchdowns. You saw Mario Williams bounce back with a touchdown reception. Every wide receiver was involved. Look for Marshawn Lloyd, Austin Jones to get involved. I think USC starts fast, puts the pressure on the freshman or Delora. It doesn't matter. They cover the 21.5 point number this coming Saturday in the Coliseum. Another big battle in terms of the Big Ten. We have Iowa laying 2 against Purdue. Iowa couldn't cover the 10.5 point number against Michigan State. It opened at 12.5. They bet it down to 10.5, but they were trailed 16-13 in the fourth quarter before the punt return changes the whole momentum and complexity of that ball game. Noah Kim has a turnover, and then it was lights out after that for Michigan State. But they played very well from a defensive perspective, and I have to be honest, what is the identity of Iowa right now? When you look at this ball game with Deacon Hill at the helm, he completed 42% of his passes in the win, 164 yards. They are only averaging 107 rushing yards per game, 133 through the air. How is that going to get it done? I know they're playing at home, but Hudson Card is playing well. He gets the victory over Illinois last week, 44-19. He throws for 217 against that defense. And granted, Illinois is just an average defense at best. But you still have the rushing attack of Tyrone Tracy that pounded the rock last week. He did for 112 yards on the ground. Not only that, but Purdue's front seven still holding opposing offenses to 3.9 yards per carry. They have the better quarterback. They're going on the road. Cade McNamara is out for the year. All the pressure on Iowa to win this game. The last 2 times, 2 out of 3, Purdue has won the game in Iowa City. I think they're live catching 2 points. Give me Purdue to strike the upset Saturday night in Iowa City. Don't believe in Kirk Ferentz or Brian Ferentz in a big spot, especially with a potentially good explosive offense in Purdue heading to down. Last one, Cal catching 9.5 against Oregon State. Oregon State dominates Nate Johnson and the Utah Utes. The defense steps up. They get sacks. They put them into long third downs. Utah cannot run the football consistently, but they go on the road to face Cal. Cal 3-2 overall. They're getting solid quarterback play, but more importantly, defense is playing well. +5 in turnover margin, 32% on third down conversions, holding opposing offenses to basically 3.7 yards per carry. I like that recipe, playing at home, catching points. This is a potential letdown spot for Oregon State, coupled with the fact that DJU is on the road, spotty at best. I know he stepped up against Utah. This is a different animal. Cal is a much better home team under Justin Wilcox than they are a road team. Give me Cal to potentially strike the upset over the Beavers in this ballgame. So that's it. 7 picks. Well, a lot of dogs. So we'll go Oklahoma State Friday night plus the 11.5. We'll go ACC Syracuse plus the 8.5 or plus the points. Boston College plus the points. Purdue plus the points. And then two big favorites will also have Georgia minus the 14, USC minus the 21.5, and Cal plus the points in terms of the matchup. I'll rip through it again. Friday night, Oak State. Then we go ACC, Syracuse, and Boston College. We also have Purdue plus the points, Cal plus the points, and then the two big favorites, Georgia and USC. I'll see you on Saturday.